What is up, Packers fans? Happy Wednesday. Welcome into an all-new episode of the Pack a Day podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. Of course, you can find the podcast at Pack a Day Podcast. Thank you so much for being here. Really cannot thank you guys enough just for making Pack a Day part of your listening experience, whether it's on the audio side, the video side, whatever you're doing. All your support is beyond amazing. So thank you for everything that you're doing. If you feel so inclined, check out Pack a Day Podcast YouTube memberships. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment, give those 5-star reviews. Those things help the channel a ton. But most importantly, thanks for being you. Thanks for loving the Packers. And thanks for being a part of the Pack a Day Podcast. A couple things I wanted to tell you about. First of all, you may notice the hat if you're watching on the YouTube channel. Green and Glory Night. So looking forward to this. December 21st, so we're 10 days away, basically. Special guests, myself, but that's not even the big ones. George Kuntz is going to be there. Ed West is going to be there, and Robert Brooks is going to be there. Going to be a ton of fun. Watch some hockey. Live Q&A with me before the game. Meet and greets with George Kuntz, Ed West, and Robert Brooks. And you can get all of that for under $20. Tickets you can get for under $20. Hockey game, meet and greet with the players, and a Q&A with me. What more could you possibly want? Allegedly, I may be a human hockey puck for this game as well. So it's going to be a ton of fun. Just come out, again, super easy. $20 or less gets you in for a ticket and gets you all of that awesome action as well. Going to be a really fun night, so make sure to check that out. I will put the link in the description notes. And yeah, really, really looking forward to it. And if you haven't checked out an Admirals game, you're definitely going to want to do so. Also, my good friends at Habish and Rotier, when you are injured, you should not have to count on a Hail Mary. And this is obviously apropos as we go into Fail Mary territory. You shouldn't have to count on a Hail Mary or a Fail Mary to get your life back on track. Trust the legal team at Habish and Rotier. They have decades of experience helping clients receive the compensation that they deserve. With Habish doing the legal heavy lifting, you can focus on healing. When it comes to well-established and respectable injury attorneys, you're going to want to use Habish. It is so incredibly easy. When you call Habish, you're going to talk to a lawyer directly. Their number is 800-242-2874 or 800-2HABISH. Of course, you can also visit their website at habish.com. Habish and Rotier, national reputation, hometown service. All right, let's get to our main topic of the day, which is going to be our grades from Packers Lions. Some really fun stuff to go over here. Let's start with our top 3 graded players on offense. Number 1 was Jordan Love with a plus 1.80 grade. Interesting day from Jordan. You will have 12 completions on 20 attempts. The first half, I think he was at like 30 yards passing. The only touchdown drive was a very Josh Jacobs-centric touchdown drive. But I thought he really stepped up in the second half with the game on the line, led his team down the field for a go-ahead touchdown. Defense gives it right back, leads his team down the field for a game tying, really a go-ahead touchdown that was taken off the board from the referees, unfortunately. And then even then, he still gets the tying field goal in that situation and then just doesn't get the ball back, right? But I thought he performed really well in the second half. And despite only having 12 completions, 2 big-time, and I mean big-time throws in this game. First one was to Christian Watson. Actually, 3 big-time throws, right? He's got the one down the field to Christian Watson on the huge play down the field. That's a really great throw in that situation. But the 2, just eye-opening ones, the one to Christian Watson where he's got the immediate pressure up the A-gap, avoids the pressure, steps up in the pocket ever so slightly, buys just enough time to get rid of the ball, and hits Christian Watson on a ball that just is barely out of the outstretched fingertips of the defender, right into the hands of Christian Watson for a big gain along the sidelines. That was a massive play in the game. And just one of those all-time highlight level throws from Jordan. And then he also has the touchdown to Tucker Kraft, where that's a throw your receiver open type of throw. There is zero separation. There's almost no window there whatsoever, and he throws an absolute laser into the back of the end zone. Great job by Tucker Kraft by paying that off. That's not an easy play to make for anyone, much less a tight end, and he goes and makes the catch. But that's a unbelievable throw by Jordan. I don't know if many quarterbacks did even attempt that throw, much less complete that. And again, hat tip to Tucker Kraft as well. Really nice day from Jordan. Still playing really great ball. No turnover-worthy plays on the day. That also helps his grade. Only 2, real negatives in this one. The one was the play in the flat to Tucker Kraft in the end zone where he overthrows him. Kraft is wide open in the end zone. Should be a touchdown, and Love just airmails it. His one really bad play for the day, I would say, is that. One you have to throw. Thankfully, Green Bay punched it in the end zone anyway, so it didn't really end up costing them, but still a negative play there for Jordan. The other one is I felt like on the final play of the game, Jordan got a little bit antsy and stepped up into the pocket. I think probably before he needed to. Jaden Reed was coming up, I thought, a little bit open on the left side where he maybe could have made a throw there down to the goal line. And now Reed would have probably had to make a move or make somebody miss to get in the end zone. But maybe he gets down to the 2 and or the 1, and maybe you can be the one that goes for it on 4th down rather than kicking the field goal there. So maybe it could have given Matt a little bit more of a decision. He also did have Bo Melton breaking open on the deep right side. Now, I think the only reason that Melton breaks open is because he steps up in the pocket and the safety comes up and commits. And once he steps up, he doesn't really have the opportunity to get his eyes down the field because he's got somebody on him immediately. I just think he was a little bit preemptive and kind of getting up in the pocket there and probably didn't need to, and probably could have focused a little bit more on just staying in the pocket and seeing if something opened up down the field. It is what it is. He's trying to make a play, doesn't end up happening, gets his face planted in the ground. They still get the field goal on the drive. And quite frankly, should have been a touchdown again earlier had it not been for the offensive pass interference call. So I thought a really, really strong half for Jordan Love in the second half led him to that very positive grade and just very minimal negatives. Josh Jacobs, plus 0.9 grade. And again, you might look at his day and be like, well, he struggled on the ground, didn't have, even 4 yards per carry, didn't really do anything through the air. So how does this work? Well, first of all, he did score 3 touchdowns and found some creases in there to get into the end zone, which were positive plays. He also, I thought, had a really good, blitz pickup through the course of the game and did have multiple other runs where he broke tackles and made something out of nothing, which he's been doing all year long. I did not think the run blocking was good in this game at all. They did not give him much opportunity. I thought Detroit had a great plan for Josh Jacobs, and Jacobs did the best that he could with very little to work with to make as much positive and still get 3 touchdowns out of this one. So not the most epic performance ever from Josh Jacobs, but still a winning performance. And if he would have gotten a little bit more blocking in this game, I think it would have set him up and you would have seen much better numbers for Jacobs. There just wasn't much he could do. It still ended up in a positive for him. And then number 3, one of the players who did do a nice job up front in run blocking and overall I thought had a nice game was Sean Ryan. It continues to be the trend. He is a impressive player. He is really starting to take over and just be like the guy that you can, I'm not saying the guy, I'm not saying over Zach Tom or necessarily even Elton Jenkins, but he's becoming a guy that you can really trust along that offensive line. It has been at times, as I've mentioned in the past, a little Jekyll and Hyde where some games he just doesn't seem to have it. But when he does, he's playing really good football. I mean, he has been on this top 3 list a ton so far this season. Not anything I expected going into the year. I'm so happy to see him playing much better in a game where Detroit's defensive front got the better of the Packers' offensive front for a good deal of this one. I thought Sean Ryan was the one that was the most impressive, did not have any major lapses. And even when he got beat, so actually this last play that we talked about with Jordan, where Jordan got a little antsy in the pocket, Sean actually gets beat on the first step on that play. And I think that may have what caused Jordan to maybe step up in the pocket and try to find someone. But Sean Ryan did a great job of recovering and making it so that there was no opportunity for the defensive lineman to get to Jordan on that play. So I think if, again, Jordan would have been a bit more patient, Sean actually did a great job of covering it. And we've seen that as well. Even in the past, where Sean would struggle is he'd get beat immediately and it would just be like a sack or an immediate pressure. You don't see those lapses with him quite as often. And even when he does maybe have that initial move that gets to him, he's able to recover and actually still make the play on it. So another nice day for Sean Ryan. Bottom 3 on offense. Number 1 was Josh Myers, negative 0.7. Really rough day. PFF gave Josh Myers a 0.0 pass blocking grade in this one. I didn't think it was that bad. I did think there were some plays where he pass protected well. So I didn't think it was like a complete abomination, but it was a rough game for Josh. Now, I will point to Kirk Benkert, who did a really great job of breaking this down. And I will say Matt LaFleur kind of brought up some of this in his press conference as well. Detroit did a great job of timing up the snap count and playing right over Josh. And Green Bay did not do a great job of getting the playoff up until, especially with a silent count on the road, of getting the playoff until there was 2 or 1 seconds left on the clock. So you couldn't do any sort of dummy cadence or any sort of dummy. It was just basically, as soon as you saw Josh Myers move, the defensive lineman could react immediately, get off the ball, and create chaos and havoc. And I thought Josh Myers could have probably done a little bit better job with managing that, but he was put in some very difficult positions because of that. So that is noteworthy here. It still was not a good day from Josh by any stretch of the imagination. Arguably his worst game of the year. Arguably was the weak point along the offensive line. And obviously I would say that, and PFF would say that as well based on the grades. And a player that I made a pretty strong argument at the beginning of the year was actually playing his best football of his career. that has taken a step back over the course of the last month or so. It has coincided with some of the injuries that he's had up front. So I don't know how much those injuries are bothering him, and if that's why he's maybe not playing up to the standard that he set earlier this season. But it was a tough game for Josh Myers, and he was my lowest graded player on offense. Christian Watson was the second one. Now, Christian had a great day, 4 catches, over 100 yards receiving. Would have graded in the positive had it not been for that big fumble. And I do feel it in a game of that magnitude when, yes, it was a nice play over the middle. When you don't make that play, or when you have that fumble on the record, it's really tough to kind of come back from that, right? And he did as good of a job as he could the remainder of the game. Obviously, we talked about the 2 big plays to Watson, the one down the field and the one just outside of the outstretched fingertips of the defender. Like, he made some big plays in this one. And this could have been a lot worse grade had it not been for him making some of those big ones. But he had the fumble. There were multiple times where he did actually struggle to get off of coverage a little bit, and he didn't block quite as well as we are used to seeing Christian Watson block. So all of that together ended up in a negative. I'll put it as simply as I can. If it weren't for the fumble, he would have graded in the positive and we wouldn't be talking about him. But the fumble was a huge play in this game. And then Rasheed Walker, negative 0.45. Struggled in this one at that left tackle position, gave up pressures, really struggled as a run blocker, and just did not have his standard of play at left tackle in this game. Been up and down for Rasheed Walker too. I still think he's been playing good football over the last, I would say, 8-ish weeks. I thought he struggled to start the season, but this was not the performance that we've sort of come to expect from Rasheed Walker. I think he can do a lot better than what we saw in this game. Think usually it's his footwork that kind of gets him into trouble a little bit. His hands are usually good. He's shown the ability to anchor, just has to stay consistent with that footwork. And when he does so, he's usually pretty darn good. I thought in this one, Detroit got the better of him on a few different occasions, and he's just got to clean some of that up so he can be a bit more consistent with his overall technique. Some noteworthy performances on the offensive side of the ball. Dontavian Wicks, negative 0.15. And this is why I love going through and watching all the tape. On the box score and watching live, this was arguably one of Dontavian Wicks' best games of the season, right? Like, he played seemingly very well, came up with some big catches, didn't drop anything, good run after the catch on a couple plays. Like, this looked like good Dontavian Wicks football. But a couple things. It's so funny because in the other games, he'd have a drop and everyone would be blasting him, or maybe ended up with 2 catches for 30 yards or something and a drop or 2, and it would be a really bad game. But you would go and watch those games and his blocking was out of this world and everything else he was doing really well. It would just be a couple drops on the day, or 1 or 2, whatever it might be. In a lot of those games, he still graded in the positive because of all the work that he was doing, especially as a blocker on the outside. This game was almost the exact opposite. Played much better as a receiver, caught everything that came his way, but I thought he struggled a lot more as a blocker in this game, and there were times where he was really struggling to get off of coverage or find any space and separation as well, which is not like Dontavian Wicks. So it was almost it was bizarro Dontavian Wicks day. Caught everything his way, made some big plays, but did not have the consistency as a blocker and struggled to get off of coverage on a few different occasions. Just like I said, the exact opposite of what we usually expect from him. Zach Tom did have a slight positive, plus 0.1 grade in this game. I thought his first quarter was about some of the worst football that you will see from Zach Tom. Just getting some pressure. That opening Zadarius Smith sack was definitely on Zach Tom in that situation. And he struggled with bull rush, struggled with, again, just I think some of the physicality early in the game. He did settle down and I thought played really good football in quarters 2, 3, and 4. And it kind of coincided with Green Bay playing better offensive football as well. But that first quarter, I don't know, the whole team looked tight at times, looked shell-shocked, and it just didn't look completely ready. And then once they settled into the game, it looked a lot better. Zach Tom is sort of the definition of that. Looked really tight early and just not himself. Once he settled into the game, he looked like Zach freaking Tom. And so it did, 3 quarters of good made up for 1 quarter of really bad, just ever so slightly. Basically a neutral game for Tom, but he did settle into the game as it went along. Jayden Reed, I saw, differing discourse here. I think PFF had a really low grade on him. I had a net neutral grade, 0.00 on Jayden Reed. Obviously, he had the drop, which was, here's the thing. He had the drop, but not a great throw from Jordan on that one. A little bit underthrown. Still should have come up with it. Slight negative for Jayden, but I'm not going to blast him on a throw that, probably wasn't where it needed to be. And then he did get a big pass interference penalty on him on that opening, I think it was the opening drive early in the game where it was a key 3rd down and he forces a pass interference penalty and it would have been a great route. So, that was a big time impactful play, even though he didn't come up with a catch. There were times where he did get open on the day and he just, didn't get the ball. There were other times he struggled to get off of coverage. To me, this ended up as a net neutral, no real negative, no real positive, but it kind of broke even through the course of the day. Chris Brooks was the only other noteworthy offensive player, plus 0.25 grade. This is just another solid pass protection performance from Chris Brooks. Didn't do anything that you're going to see show up on any highlight films, but multiple big blitz pickups in this one on a day where Detroit was, often pressuring Green Bay and bringing extra guys. They needed Chris Brooks and some of those running backs to step up and pass pro, and Josh Jacobs did on a one or two plays, and Chris Brooks was very consistent in that regard as well. All right, let's get to our top 3 grades on defense. If you want a real positive to take away from this game, it is that Kenny Clark was the top graded defender with a plus 0.6 grade. Now, it wasn't this otherworldly, out of this world grade, right? Like a plus 1.5 or something like that. He had a big time game. I really liked what I saw to Kenny. A couple plays where he still struggled to get off of blocks, but man, he was so much more impactful, especially in the run game. Still would like to see a bit more as a pass rusher, which is why, again, maybe the grade isn't a little bit higher. We're starting to see much better play from Kenny Clark. Now, I don't know if, and I would argue we're not seeing, anything of like what we're kind of used to with Kenny Clark, like prime Kenny Clark. This might be the new Kenny Clark, right? Like you get to that age 30 range and things change sometimes. If you got this performance from Kenny Clark consistently, man, that is still a unbelievable Kenny Clark. So I'm hopeful, fingers crossed, that Kenny figured it out. He looked much more spry. He looked much more physical. His hands were much better in this game. His leverage was much better. This was Kenny Clark. Like we saw really good Kenny Clark in this one. And if that can carry over, man, is that going to help Green Bay's defense. And it's not like he went against some bum. Like he went a lot against Frank Ragnow and a really good Detroit Lions interior, their offensive line. So that is a very encouraging and promising sign for Kenny Clark. Multiple tackles in the backfield, all over the place, rallying to the football. Just a really good sound game from Kenny Clark. Rashawn Gary, plus 0.45 grade. Big sack early in the game. Had a couple pressures. I thought he did not a much better job. He's been doing a good job on it all season long, but he played well against the run, set the edge, wasn't over aggressive, like just kind of did what he needed to do. Are we still, again, kind of like we just talked with Kenny, are we still wanting a little bit more? Will we love some sort of 2-3 sack performance here or there and just kind of take over a game and be like, I'm going to make my presence felt? Yes, we would love to see that from Rashawn. Has not really been that way, but this was another positive performance. In no way is he playing bad. He's playing good football, and I thought this was kind of the Rashawn Gary that we have seen over the course of the last, I would say, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks. A good player, somebody that's helping the team, best edge player on the team, but I still think there's a ceiling there that we've seen that he's not quite getting to yet, but nice to see him get a sack in this one and make a handful of plays. Last one on the positive, Lucas Van Ness, plus 0.35 grade, had a really nice play, unblocked, but scraping down the line, closing the back door and shutting down a run play, showed off his great athleticism on that play. And then I do think he's getting better as a pass rusher. He's getting much better as a run defender. This is, again, a player, very quietly, for me, LVN, I think, is a very slight negative. He's like a negative 0.234, somewhere in there. He's basically at a neutral grade. Now, are we talking about a player that's living up to top 15 pick or anything like that? No, we're not. But we're also not talking about a bad player. We're talking about somebody who's helping, contributing. He's being more consistent as of late. He's getting a bit more playing time. His pass rush win rate has been better. Those are signs of progress. Sometimes these things take baby steps and then the light bulb goes on and it clicks and he's good to go from there. Hopefully that's the case. But I think we have seen better football from LVN. It has coincided with Preston Smith being out and or gone, traded, whatever you want to call it. And then, I do think that he's starting to gain a little bit more confidence. And sometimes with playing time and more consistency gets you that confidence to go out there and perform better, allows you to learn on the job. And I think we're seeing a little bit of that out of LVN right now. So plus 0.35 grade for LVN. Bottom 3 on defense. This is not going to come as a surprise. Eric Stokes, negative 0.65. I will say this. There were 4 or 5 coverage plays in this game where I thought Eric Stokes looked much better. Looked like he was in phase with the wide receiver. Looked like he was, doing everything that he could. He looked like a solid starting corner. Now, he did allow the in-breaker that was dropped. It looked like maybe he got his first pass breakup since 2021, but no, it was just a dropped play on that one. Should have been a completion that he gave up there. But the big play, Tim Patrick in the end zone. And it's a play action play. Green Bay's bringing pressure. It's one-on-one. Eric Stokes versus Tim Patrick. Listen, if Eric Stokes allowed that touchdown on a contested catch, I won't say great job or whatever, but it's a bit understandable given that that's a one-on-one route. You can go any direction. That's a tough play. That is a tough play, and Tim Patrick ran a phenomenal route. So if that's a contested catch or whatever, it's going to be probably a negative, but I'm not going to kill Eric Stokes for that. That is a tough play to make. If he contests it and Patrick comes up with a catch, you tip your cap, right? Stokes got nuked. I mean, he got absolutely nuked. He stood no chance. In fact, it looked like Stokes, recognizing he was beat so badly on the play, tried to grab him so that he wouldn't just allow the easy touchdown, right? Better to have 1st and goal from the 1-inch line than allowing a touchdown. And he couldn't even grab him. He got separation so quickly that Stokes, even trying to cheat and trying to pull him down, could not do so. So that was not great. And it was, if it had not been for that play, I would have actually, I think, been talking about today my noteworthy performances of this was a little bit better from Stokes. There were some positive signs here. And then he just goes and gets absolutely obliterated in a key situation on the goal line on a 3rd down. Doesn't even make it close. So he's negative 0.65. Kingsley Enagbare, negative 0.55. One of the things that I think has been under talked about is that Enagbare has really struggled since the Preston Smith trade. I think LVN has been better. I think we've seen flashes from Brenton Cox and Aaron Mosby. That trade has not done Kingsley Enagbare any favors. I think it's given him a bit more responsibility, a handful more snaps. And he hasn't handled that well. He is not really doing much as a run defender. He's not getting to the quarterback. There's not much that he is actually doing quite effectively at the moment. And I thought as a rotational guy, he was kind of a change of pace to what Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith, even LVN were. But right now, as kind of the guy that's getting the starts, I'm not seeing it right now from Enagbare. And I don't know if you need to promote LVN to the starter and get maybe Enagbare more in that, kind of secondary, tertiary rotational role. But it's not been great on tape for Enagbare since the Preston's, trade, and since there's been a bit more on Enegbare's plate. And then Eric Wilson, negative 0.5. This has a lot to do with the linebackers struggling in coverage. He did not play well in the run game. This was just a poor performance from Eric Wilson. Then, of course, the big one was he was misaligned on the touchdown where he's trying to race over and get to Tim Patrick on the other Tim Patrick touchdown. And it's just a nightmare because he's misaligned and not in the right spot. Eric Stokes also was very confused on that play. They were swapped. Detroit did a great job running back at receiver, wide receiver at running back, and the assignments got messed up because of it. Detroit went tempo, and Eric Wilson ended up kind of biffing that one, not being aligned correctly, and it ended up in a touchdown on another key 3rd down or 4th down. I think that was a 3rd down play if memory serves. But either way, tough play there for the defense. And Eric Wilson specifically. Some noteworthy performances. Isaiah McDuffie, negative 0.1. Yes, there was some really bad stuff on tape from Isaiah McDuffie in this game, specifically in the passing game. There was also some really good stuff in run defense. And this run defense has continued to perform well, and McDuffie is definitely a piece of that. So it evened out a little bit more for me. Still a negative grade. Still thought the pass defense was very brutal at times, but I did think the run defense was really, really good. So it kind of evened out, but it still ended up as a slight negative grade. Quay Walker was one of the ones that we were really looking forward to in this game, seeing if he could, have another really big game. He did not. There were times where I thought it looked like same old Quay, like the Quay that we've seen over time. There were also times where I saw, that's the new Quay. That's the one that's attacking and playing downhill. It was just a little bit more, you didn't know which Quay you were going to get at any given moment in this one. He was one of my lowest graded defenders up until late in this game where he went out and made a couple plays, drew a holding penalty on a screen pass. There was a lot more positives at the end of this game. I thought early and middle of the game, he was struggling and again, was probably one of my lowest graded players at that time, but he ends up with just a slight negative, and we did see some positives from Quay late in the game. Keyshawn Nixon, plus 0.25. Couple of really, really nice plays in coverage, including a big-time interception. Couple of plays where he just got beat too easily. Listen, he gets the penalty on the goal line. Do I think that maybe could have been one where you say, hey, the wide receiver made the contact first and you don't call that play? Yeah. Do I think that Keyshawn Nixon needs to have better technique and fundamentals and not be put in that situation? Yes. Same thing with the pass interference or the non-OPI late in the game. Do I think that that's a offensive pass interference by the letter of the law? Yes. Do I think it's getting called in that situation? No. Do I think Nixon needs to do a better job of sticking with his guy and being a bit more physical regardless? Yes. So gave up some plays, made some big plays. This still ended up as a nice positive plus 0.25 in large part due to the interception for Nixon in this one. I liked Evan Williams quite a bit prior to going out with injury. Thought he was all over the place, playing the level of football that we've come to expect from Evan Williams. Thought he did a great job of racing down from the box to come make plays in the run game. Thought he was consistent in coverage. I know PFF didn't like him quite as much, but I thought he had a really nice game prior to going out with injury. Javon Bullard did not, negative 0.2 grade. Again, I think PFF had a much worse grade on Bullard. He did really struggle in man coverage in this one. There were some definite hang with him's where he's just in really tough spots against like guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown. But if you're being asked to do it, you got to find a way to do it. Gave up some big completions in man coverage and then had some inconsistencies through the remainder of the game. Negative 0.2 for him. And then Zane Anderson, I thought did a nice job coming in and replacing Evan Williams. Plus 0.1 grade. The big play at the end, that big run stuff on third down, which likely would have, for almost every other team, made them kick the field goal and allowed Green Bay to get the ball back. Instead, Detroit went for it on the preceding fourth down, picked it up, and then kicked the field goal, and Green Bay did not have any time. But at the time, that was a huge run stuff by Zane Anderson on a key third down. Just to recap, top 3 performances on offense: Jordan Love, Josh Jacobs, and Sean Ryan. Bottom 3 on offense: Josh Myers, Christian Watson, and Rasheed Walker. Top 3 on defense: Kenny Clark, Rashawn Gary, and LVN. Bottom 3 on defense: Eric Stokes, Kingsley Enagbare, and Eric Wilson. That's going to do it for me today. Thank you so much for joining me. Shout out to our All-Pro and Hall of Fame members: Most Hated Minnesotan, PJ Wynn, John Wild, Brandon Paletta, Jennifer Wright, Boomhandle, Donald Lee, Lori Lord, Baby QB, David McCluskey, Donald Decker, Alex Wong, Arnaldo Espinoza, Peter Ritaka, SoCal Pack, Jay Zimmerman, B. Brown, Puerto Rican Packer, Dan Gessford, Step Keat, Love and Football, Dylan Pat Scott, and Bobby Santoro. I will see you guys soon, but until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.